The monster in Chef's Whites. I've had a pretty crazy week since I last posted, and I hope to God that these are the last new details I'll have about any of this. Keep your fingers crossed for me that this is our conclusion. As I mentioned in the original post, I've been taking precautions against the thing that had recently set its sights on me. I'm carrying pepper spray, the best I could find on such short notice, and I also called up an old classmate from high school who agreed to pick me up from work each night in exchange for beer money. The guy's name is Mike, and he's 300 pounds of small-town asshole. He's known for acting tough and picking fights at the bars around here, so I figured maybe he can punch this thing out if it shows its face. It was quiet for a while, no trouble. But a few nights ago, Mike and I were in his old beater of a truck heading home. Mike was driving about 30 miles per hour and talking his head off, which isn't really unusual for him, but tonight he wasn't even waiting for my input while he had a conversation with himself. He was saying that he didn't believe a word about the creature that had been stalking me. Or as he called it.
That story you've been telling, girl. I mean, you're asking me to believe in monsters or some shit.
He said at me, but mostly to himself.
You're talking me and everyone else you've been telling for a fool.
He took a faux pensive breath, squinted down the road still ahead of us, then continued talking.
I suppose you really do have this video, this footage or whatever you've been calling it, of some guy acting like a freak. So what? There's plenty of freaks out there, girl. Lot of freaks in general. Ain't no thing to meet a freak in the wild now and again. Ain't no thing at all.
He took a moment to spit something out his window, squint his eyes down the road again, and then kept talking.
I mean, it's natural for girls to get scared of nothing, I guess. That's natural. But I don't.
That's the sound Mike made when the thing broke his neck and crushed his trachea like an empty can of soda. It was waiting for us just up the road, I guess, and when we drove by doing 30, it just shot its hand right through the window and grabbed him by the throat. Mike was 100% dead, lights out, nice knowing yet, before that hissing noise he made was even finished. But I had no time to mourn. In that final split second of panic, Mike had tensed his legs out, and his corpse was now flooring the accelerator. Even worse than that, though, was the fact that the thing in Chef's Whites was still hanging onto his mangled neck, using the body like an anchor. It was hauling itself into the moving vehicle. I scrambled to unbuckle Mike's seatbelt, and to pry his foot up from the accelerator. Finally I managed it, and as soon as I did, the weight of the creature pulled him right out the window. It was like a vacuum breach from one of those deep space movies, like he was sucked out the window by an overwhelming force. That's how heavy this creature attached to him was. And the thing in Chef's Whites didn't loosen its grip for a second as it fell, either. They hit the asphalt together, the thing and the corpse it had made. Mike bore the impact almost entirely. In midair, the creature had managed to get on top of him and ride the body like a sled as they came down. By this point the car was already working its way into a spin-out, and I remember just going limp and hoping that the crash would kill me. When the impact came, I hit my head badly enough to make my vision go wonky, but I wasn't too injured to move. I freed myself from the wreck and turned to look behind me for the thing in Chef's Whites. It was already coming for me. The creature's silhouette, maybe 100 yards away at that moment, lowered itself from a bipedal position into that four-legged sprint I had seen once before. I fumbled for my pepper spray. But just as the last-ditch weapon was ready in my hand, the creature slammed into me with so much force that I felt two of my ribs break inside my chest before we even hit the ground. I was pinned to the asphalt, but my arms were free. I unloaded the pepper spray right in its face at point-blank range. The mist from the spray rained back down onto me, of course, but mortal terror kept me focused. The creature was staring into my eyes when the skin on its face began to blister. Then the skin was peeling away like scoured wallpaper, and then it was falling off in sopping chunks. The eyes resisted somehow, not blinking or wincing at all. They simply stared back at me from the sockets of a bloody and increasingly fleshless skull. Finally the eyes gave way, popping together like two ripe zits, but apparently causing the creature no discomfort as they went. A raspy chuckle rumbled up from inside the creature's chest. As the laughter grew and parted its formerly gritted teeth, I saw there was still a thick tongue lolling around inside its naked jaw. Just as one of its hands was moving to grip my throat, the thing paused. It looked up suddenly, directing its empty eye sockets towards something nearby. Then there was a sound that split my ears. 3 gunshots from very nearby buried themselves in the thing that hadn't minded losing its face. The creature must have caught all 3 slugs right in the center of its body, because it went tumbling towards the side of the road like it had been knocked that way by a hand grenade. It went silently, with no wailing protests or cries of pain at all. It was suddenly so quiet on the road that I could hear the police radio from the officer who had just happened to be driving by the scene of the wrecked truck when he saved my life by firing those 3 shots. He called for backup and an ambulance before stalking carefully over to the roadside ditch where the creature had fallen and disappeared from view. Still lying in the road, I allowed the pain from my head injury, broken ribs, and pepper-sprayed eyes to wash over me for the first time. From the ditch came the officer's voice, and a flashlight beam arcing in the motions of an aimless search.
Damn. Where the hell did he go?
When the ambulance arrived a few minutes later, and the EMTs had me propped up on the stretcher, I was able to catch a glimpse of what the officer had seen. There was no body, and no trace either of an escape route marked in blood spatter through the field or back across the road. There was nothing at all except a mass of gore sitting in the center of some matted down grass where the thing had first come to rest after being shot. It was a thick, almost gelatinous, heap of red-purple tissue, steaming gently in the night air. Less than 15 minutes had passed since the thing in Chef Sweit's was last seen, but the heap was already swarming with an impossible collection of invertebrates. Roaches, crickets, flies, flowing tendrils of ants, even clumsy, blind worms were jockeying to claim a piece of it. Each was carrying some away, disseminating what remained of the creature into the air, into the trees, and into the ground. I suspect that by the time a crime scene photographer arrived, there would be nothing left to prove that the thing had ever even been there.